Well, I'm out today on the Red Revolt, and it's not summer yet. Once again, I'm a little bit underdressed. It was quite mild yesterday, but today there's a nasty little bite to the wind. Well, I watched a video last week by GCN, and the video was really good. I recommend it to everyone. And the gist of it was that building more roads will not ease traffic. See, on average, people are prepared to commute for about an hour a day. And all that happens when you build a new road is people are prepared to drive further because they'll still stick to their hour a day. So they might accept a job in a further away location, or they might choose to live in a more pleasant location and keep the job they've already got. And so the more roads you have, the more cars you have. Simple thing. Build a new motorway. Takes away the traffic for a bit, but in a very short space of time, the new motorway is full. So roads don't ease traffic, they draw traffic. More roads, more cars. People go further. And it's the same in a lot of things. In supermarkets, only have one or two checkouts open because they know people will have a certain tolerance to the amount of time they're prepared to queue. And that'll force everybody onto the self-checkout, which means they can get rid of a load more staff and get you to do the job they used to pay somebody else to do. If they opened a load more checkouts, you wouldn't get through any quicker because all the people from the self-checkouts would then come to the main checkouts. People will drive to, I don't know, the NEC in Birmingham from Cardiff if there's something on there, and they'll go for the day, which we'd never have done in the 60s. The roads weren't good enough and it took too long. People would drive somewhere 200 miles away for the weekend, which they would have never have done before the motorways. And then as those motorways get fuller and fuller, and people start to drive a little bit less, and they won't go quite as far for a day trip. If you put another lane in, ease the traffic for a couple of months, and then that lane fills up. Anyway, I'm not going to tell you all of what they said in the GCN video because you can just watch it yourself, and I recommend you do. But this has been known about since the 60s, and my reading was that GCN are saying, well, if academics have known this since the 60s, why don't governments? And why don't we start doing something about it? And what I'm going to tell you is nothing will ever be done about it. And there's two reasons for that. But the first one, and the biggest one, is money. The motorist is the government's cash cow, and they're not about to let that one go. I mean, there's a reason that the Beechings report was commissioned, and for those of you that aren't in Britain, that was a report that said should close down all the branch lines of the railways. And once they did that, immediately they sold the land and started building on it to ensure that those lines would never be opened again. They didn't mothball them, they destroyed them. Why? So they could force people into their cars. And let's not forget all of the other industries that go with it. Because it's important to understand that government and industry are very, very tightly intertwined. I mean, industry lobbies government, but government ministers also have. But government ministers also have business links, and they move in those circles. And the motorist props up the oil industry, an industry that since the 60s has made billions and billions and billions of dollars in profit. But it's not just the oil industry, it's the banking with car finance, it's insurance companies, it's the accessories, the tyres, all of the other consumable parts on a car. It's big business. Public transport costs money, whereas to governments and industry, the motorist makes money. And they're not about to let that go. And of course, let's not forget the road builders. We're being told that we have an environmental crisis on our hands. If you think about it, we could solve quite easily. But it always comes down to the same argument. Money. Who's going to pay for it? You've got idiots like Richard Tice saying, go green, go broke. It's always about money. But it shouldn't matter. Money's a theory. Humanity could get together and solve the crisis. But no, we measure it all by money. If the climate crisis is as bad as they say, the human race will die out. But here's the good news. The planet will survive. And along with the human race, the money will disappear as well. And the oil companies have been fighting against climate action for a long time because they don't want to lose any money. But now that it's got to the point where people are saying, yeah, but we've got to do something about it, we're not trying to get people out of their cars. We're not providing better cycling infrastructure. We're not providing better public transport. No, what we're doing is telling people they've got to spend an exorbitant amount of money on an electric car. A car which was twice the size of the petrol car, twice the weight, much more damaging to the road infrastructure because they don't want to give up that cash cow. I'm sure the oil companies are going to lose out, but hey, they've still got aviation and generators and various other things. They'll survive. They might have to downgrade their forecast to obscene profit, down from absolutely ridiculously obscene profit. But they'll survive. But the banking industry, the insurance industry, They're not going to allow the car to disappear. The government are looking at new ways to tax the motorist. If we haven't got fuel tax, perhaps we'll have to look at pay per mile, they say. And we've got smart meters. Keep telling us you've got to get a smart meter for your electricity. The reason they want you to have a smart meter is it tells them what you're using your electricity for. And I don't think it'll be long before they start saying, oh well, yeah, but we're going to tax the electricity you use for charging your car. The rest of your electricity will be fine, but the car bit, we're going to have to tax you on that. If you built decent bike lanes, ones that actually are viable, then in the same way that roads draw cars, the bike lanes would draw more cyclists. And instead, they build absolutely ridiculous cycle lanes that are virtually unusable. And then they say, oh well, you know, we tried to provide infrastructure, but they didn't use them, so we're not going to bother anymore. And they're quite happy to allow the right-wing media to spread anti-cycling rhetoric and the us and them on Facebook groups and the like. They're quite happy with that because they don't want us to give up our cars. It's the reason that we have out-of-town shopping centres that you can only get to by car. And look at the amount of space that we've given over to cars. Just go and stand on the bridge of a motorway. Just take in how much land has been used to create that motorway. Look at how much land has been taken up for car parking. I mean, okay, other countries have bigger pieces of land, but if you drive around Britain, have a look at the number of front gardens that have been dug up to park cars on. How every side road is nose to tail with parked cars. So, as I've said, the main reason that things aren't going to change is money. But the other reason is that the capitalist system thrives on self-centeredness, and governments like the divide and rule theory. So they don't want you sitting on a train or a bus chatting with other people. That's not how it works. They want you sitting in your car on your own, completely cut off from the rest of society. Motorway traffic jam, there are literally thousands and thousands of people all together in a very close space, and yet every single one of them is completely on their own. So sorry GCN, nothing's going to change, certainly not in Britain anyway. The reason we're known as Rip-Off Britain is because successive governments have allowed and encouraged their corporate friends to rip us off. Anyway, that's my rant for the day. If you found it interesting, then as usual, like and subscribe.